My name is Kinza, and I am the administrative coordinator here at Minaret Foundation. So it's nice to meet you, Jolene.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for the invitation.
Of course, of course. So Minaret Foundation is where we bring Muslims, Jews, and Christians together to change the world around us. Joining us today is Jolene Sanders-Foster, who is an Advocacy Director of Coalition of Texans and with disabilities and is joining us as a part of our No Kids in Cuffs webinar series, where we interview advocates who are part of our No Kids in Cuff coalition. Jolene is a specialist in many policy areas, including disability rights, early childhood interventions, inclusive childcare, access to care, special education, child protection, and the school to prisons pipeline. Welcome, Jolene.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
All right, let's jump right in, okay? Your background is in mass communications and family and child studies. What inspired you to enter the world of policy?
That's a really interesting question. It's a space I didn't set out to land in, but like many of my fellow advocates from partner organizations, there's some kind of personal motivation. I always knew I wanted to work with children and families in some capacity. Some of my work was in research and program evaluations, direct services, being a family advocate just for specific families. And then, like anything, your kids can inspire you to do all kinds of stuff. And that's kind of what happened with me. My son was diagnosed with a disability when he was 3 years old. And I still hadn't moved into the world of policy, but as I started to navigate this different world of disability and trying to ensure my son had really robust opportunities for inclusion and access to a quality education, I started to notice gaps, barriers, things that just weren't there. And so as you advocate for your own child, you realize the more you're doing it that systemically nothing is going to change. For my experience moving forward as a parent, for the experience of others who are moving forward on this path. And so I just kind of started getting interested in okay, where do we plug the holes? Where do we add the things that are missing? I think as a kid, I was always kind of that kid who overanalyzed and thought about, but this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. It has to be fixed.
Right.
Probably to some extent that it was very annoying.
Paid off, though, it seems.
Yeah. So I just kind of took a leap and, I about 10, 15 years ago now, and just started doing something completely different. And I just kind of self-taught, connected with a lot of really great people who were really great mentors who I continue to work with today. And really carved out the issues that I really wanted to make an impact. And that was the space where it felt like this is my advocacy family. And I eventually landed at the Coalition of Texans with Disabilities, which is an organization that I respected long, 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 long before I had the pleasure of joining their team.
That's awesome. Very serendipitous of how it came about, it seems. All right. The next thing is the issue of restraints in schools has been heavily debated for the better part of the last decade. What to you is the most important aspect of the restraint policy?
There's so many. We know restraints don't work. We know that they're reactive. They're responding to whatever the situation may be, whether it's a behavior, a violation of the code of conduct, even property destruction, which can include anything from breaking a pencil to punching a wall. We know they don't work, number one. Number two, the trauma is so lasting not just for the student, but for the family, for the parents, for the siblings. And it tends to actually introduce, new behaviors or new trauma, new challenges. And we know that there's a better way in addressing what may be missing, whether it's something in a child's education plan, some kind of support for the family, training for educators and paraprofessionals. But really, it's that trauma piece. It's lifelong. These kids kids are resilient, and they can kind of move past certain incidents, but it's always kind of bubbling in the back. And so then what we see is with each subsequent instance of restraint, it brings it all back. It brings all of it back, and it brings it back much stronger. And I as a human, but also as the advocacy director at CTD, we want a better way, right? We know there are better ways. And so unfortunately, we can't just wave a magic wand or, ask everybody politely to please, do the right thing. That comes down to policy change, comes down to having this actually outlined in statute. And so that's where we came to know the Minaret Foundation. And it seems like we've been working on restraints for so long, and it's just a really great time that we have so many excellent partners and leaders like Minaret Foundation who are really drawing attention to this, and hopefully will eliminate those traumatic events for future students.
Yes. We hope so as well. All right. Coalition of Texans with Disabilities has been an active member of both the federal and state. No Kids in Cuff Coalition. Can you speak about the impact coalitions like No Kids in Cuff have on the state and federal policy?
Yeah, absolutely. We couldn't do our work without coalitions. We can't operate in silos. These are our partners. These are our collaborators. These are, building a voice and building one voice and a message, and from various perspectives. For us, obviously, it's through the lens of disability, but bringing all of those perspectives together makes that advocacy stronger. We have a lot of really amazing, brilliant thought partners and folks who come to the table, whatever table that may be, virtual or in person, with resources, with institutional knowledge, with their own networks. And that collaboration just multiplies the ability to move that needle. Like I said, we can't really do it without our amazing partners who are, have the same priorities, but there's always like that special sauce.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. And I know you've already answered a bit of this, but I wanted to kind of elaborate a little bit more. Part of your story is being a parent of a child with disability. How has your lived experience shaped the way you approach policies?
It's not only shaped it, but it's kind of blurred my role sometimes, because I care very deeply about policies. I care very deeply about children and families, and in children and families who've experienced the same thing that we have. I'll openly share that my son, when he was younger, was restrained more times than you would like me to say. They were dangerous. They were traumatic. And so that obviously, is a motivation to, this is something that shouldn't have happened. This is something that should not happen. Moving forward, the policy should change for other families. But also because the my motivation is so intrinsically linked in, the experiences of my family and others, that when I am speaking with a parent who's experiencing this, or I'm reading of yet another horrific instance of restraint, it just fuels that even more, if that makes sense. Yeah. So it's not just my own experience, navigating this with my child, advocating, for the elimination of it for my kid, seeking the services for him to recover from that trauma. But when it's hard to see that this continue to happen. It's hard to hear these stories and not just kind of feel even more motivated. It's like you kind of get recharged, because this can be really exhausting. It's very emotionally heavy stuff that we deal with. And that's also kind of a way that coalitions can support each other and feed each other and remind each other to, each individual to practice self-care, because this is hard stuff.
Right. That's a great message. Lastly, what about No Kids in Cuff inspires you to continue work?
Wow. First of all, it's just a really excellent group of folks, and I'm inspired, and I'm confident in the progress that is being made in this area. I'm confident in just what has happened over the last year and a half, 2 years. That's amazing progress. I'm inspired to continue anything when I see just a little bit of progress, right? It's a marathon. It's not a sprint when it comes to, changing systems or changing things that are, eliminating things that are harmful to children. But I think to see the ripple effect, and that's what I hope to see, the ripple effect, when I say when, not if, but when this is implemented, just how many different systems it'll impact, not just within schools, the family well-being, child well-being, their outcomes. We know that, kids who are arrested even once have, they're more likely to be arrested again, or, be handcuffed or restrained. And we know that the outcomes, they're not great. They're less likely to graduate. They have lifelong trauma. To see this ripple effect, to keep a kid safe, just one, and then many, and then the impact on the family and the community, and our whole state and our whole nation.
Very nice. Okay, well, my name is Kimza, you guys, and I'm with Jolene Foster. Is it Foster Sanders?
Sanders-Foster.
Sanders-Foster. And this is where we bring Muslims, Jews, Christians together to change the world around us. Today, we were joined by Jolene Sanders, Advocacy Director of Coalition of Texans with Disabilities. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time, Jolene, and God bless. Thank you so much.
Thank you.